Most people are scared of cold calling, and they're scared of cold calling because they suck at it. And the reason they suck at it is because they're making the same three simple mistakes that everybody else does. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to do to be in the top 1% of cold callers and to confidently, consistently speak to your contacts. Oh, and along the way, you'll find that you have a lot more fun. Before I get into it, if you want to understand the world's most effective cold calling script and cold calling system, look down in the description. There's a link there to my free ebook that will allow you to develop your skills in a systematic, step-by-step process. Just click the link, fill in details, you've got immediate access, it'll come straight to your inbox. Enjoy. Over the last 25 years, I've trained more than 100,000 salespeople in hundreds of different niches. And when I work for corporate clients, I get paid purely on results. So what I talk about has been tested, it's been proven, it's based on science, and it works. There's a couple of things people say about cold calling which are both true and not. They say it's a numbers game, and they say it's a contact sport, as in the more contacts you make, the more business you'll do. Yeah, they're kind of true, but not in the way that most people think. If you just contact lots of people and do the wrong things in the wrong way really frequently, all that will do is make you fail faster. It'll also, along the way, make you depressed and put you off the concept of cold calling. And you'll end up on LinkedIn like all those people go, oh, cold calling doesn't work. It's so 1990s. Oh, these days, nobody answers the... No. Anyone who says cold calling doesn't work doesn't know how to do it. So let's get into the three most common mistakes people make and how you can resolve them. The key here is skills, but those skills have to be applied to the psychology of people. So let's face a fact. Most people don't like salespeople. You don't, I don't, they don't. Let me give you an example. If you remember back when we didn't shop everything online, we actually went to stores in places and we interacted with humans. You walk into a store, you're intending to buy something. If they've got it and it's the right price, you'll buy it. You walk in, the sales assistant walks up to you and goes, can I help you? What's your immediate response? Is it, yes, thank you. Could you please show me the way? No. Almost everybody's immediate knee-jerk response is, no thanks, I'm just looking. And then 3 or 4 minutes later, you've got that slightly embarrassing thing where you have to go back to that very nice sales assistant and say, actually, could you help me with? We've all been there. You see, buying is potentially risky. You might look stupid, you might get ripped off, you might lose your money, you might be embarrassed, it might go wrong, you might get conned. We've all got this perception that buying is risky, because it is. And salespeople are therefore, potentially dangerous. They're potentially risky. That's made even worse by the cliches that we have of salespeople. They're brash, loud, arrogant, try and push you to do stuff. They're forcing you to do things that you might not want to do. Well, not the best salespeople. The best salespeople have nothing to do with those kind of cliches or misnomers. So the first mistake that people make when they're cold calling is they sound like a salesperson. And if you sound like a salesperson, you trigger fight or flight. If you sound like you're going to be pushing, the other person will push back. If you sound like you're going to be pulling somebody, they'll pull in the opposite direction. So the first thing we have to do is to avoid triggering fight or flight. The simplest way to not trigger fight or flight, to not sound like a salesperson, is to be incredibly aware of your tonality. Now, just think about it for a second. If I ask you to describe how a salesperson sounds, you've probably got some kind of mental framework for it. Well, if you did the opposite of that, well, that probably wouldn't work because you'd be a bit too shy and a bit inhibited and you probably wouldn't do anything. But somewhere between the two is the secret. So, tonality. So, if I'm starting a call with somebody, the last thing I want to do is, "Hi, this is Steve, I'm calling from," because that's going to put most people off. What I do is I'm trying to interrupt somebody's pattern. And the way to interrupt somebody's pattern is by behaving in a slightly unexpected way. I don't mean, be random or wacky or any of that stuff. I literally mean this that I'm doing now. So when I go onto a call with somebody, if I call Dick, Jane, or Spot, I'll start with, "Hey, is that Dick, Jane, or Spot?" "Great. Dick, Jane, or Spot? It's Stephen from Stephen Long Coaching. Let me explain the reason I'm calling." I'm starting at that nice, gentle, unthreatening, unintimidating level. I'm trying to sound curious. I'm sounding intrigued because I'm going to be throwing in some questions. So I want to deliver it in a tone of being inquisitive, not an inquisitor. So I don't want to sound like I'm going to be grilling somebody. I want to sound like I'm just curious. I'm just interested. If I can get that tonality, it draws people in. So the first thing is I have to be incredibly conscious of my tonality. And the only way to get really good at that is, and I say this knowing what people's response is going to be, you've got to listen to the calls. You've got to rewatch the Zoom calls. You've got to actually listen to yourself, hear yourself, because we've probably all of us had the experience of seeing yourself back on video and you don't recognize your own voice or you don't recognize yourself on camera. We've all been there. I've been doing this for decades and I still have the same experience. The first time I do a playback, it's always a little bit self-conscious. But if you don't hear your own tonality, how do you practice? How do you get better at it? So if you want to really get good at tonality, if you want to really get good at your delivery, it requires not just practice, it requires conscious practice, which means playing it back. So record the calls, play them back, with permission, legally. Record the calls, play them back, record the Zooms, watch them back, watch your body language, watch your eye contact, watch what you're doing. It's the only way to get better is mindful practice. We're consciously avoiding fight or flight by our tonality. But more than that, we're trying to build a sense of familiarity. We want this person not just to be unafraid, unintimidated. We want them to think, "Oh, yeah, this stranger's a lot like me. They're kind of like me. I feel comfortable with them." Rapport, which is number two, rapport is nothing more than feeling like you're on the same wavelength as somebody. It's feeling like they're similar to you. People like them. People who are like each other tend to like each other. So if I can make you feel familiar with me, if I can make it feel like, "Oh, yeah, we're on the same wavelength," I've broken the fight or flight and now we can have a conversation. Now, there's all this stuff in old-fashioned sales training courses and old-fashioned books about, matching somebody's body language. You have to sit the same, you have to cross your legs the same way they do, you have to hold your head the same way they do, you have to have the same posture. And no, it's obvious it doesn't work. The difference between matching somebody's behavior and mimicking them is the point at which they know you're doing it. So you can't mimic somebody because it's rude and it's obnoxious and it will have the opposite effect, but you can match them. So we're dealing with cold calls here. So I can match somebody's behavior that fast. So let's say that I call Dick, Jane, or Spot. and they go, "Hi, it's Spot here. How can I help?" The first thing I do is match their behavior. "Hi, Spot. Stephen here from Stephen Long Coaching." Now I've used their words back to them. They said hi. I've said hi. I didn't say hello. I didn't say good morning. I didn't say anything else. I said hi because they said hi. They said, "Hi, Spot here." So I went, "Spot, hi, it's," and I'm speaking at the same speed, at the same volume as they are. And the little switch in their head will go, "Oh, they're kind of like me." Now, if they'd answered the phone and gone, "Hi, it's Spot here. How can I help?" I would not have gone, "Spot, hi, it's..." No, I'd have gone, "Spot, hi, it's Stephen from Stephen Long Coaching." I'm speaking at the same speed and the same volume, and I'm using the same keywords that they are. That's all. And I speak at the same speed and the same volume, and I'll trigger a sense of familiarity. And then once I've matched their behavior and they're comfortable with me, I can very quickly, like 2 or 3 seconds, start to lead them into being curious and being inquisitive. Because if we're on the same wavelength and I start to become a bit curious and a bit inquisitive, there's a very good chance that you'll follow me into that state. So I match their speed, I match their volume. If they start slow and quiet, I start slow and quiet. If they start loud and fast, I start loud and fast. Very few people do those extremes. So I just match their behavior, speed, volume. And in all the years I've done this, I have never had anybody say, "Stephen, will you stop speaking at the same speed as me?" Who the hell notices that? Most people don't recognize their voice when they hear it played back to them. So the chances they recognize how fast they're speaking, forget about it. It's just, you're never going to become obvious if that's what you're doing. So you start speaking at the same speed and volume that they are, and then you change your speed and volume. And if they go with you, you have rapport. And if they don't, you don't, and you need to go back and build a bit more. But if they change with you, then you've built rapport. You've got way past fight or flight, and now you're in a conversation between two equals who feel comfortable with each other. So that's the first rule, is to not trigger fight or flight. Use your tonality to do that. And the second is to build rapport fast. Most people don't build rapport, or if they do build rapport, they do it very, very slowly, which doesn't work. When I was based in London, I had a sales team of 18 people, almost none of whom came from a conventional sales background. Their job was to cold contact chief executives, managing directors, sales directors of medium to large companies, get them on the phone, engage them in a conversation, and then either set up a meeting which led to a deal, or do a deal directly on the phone. And we were selling sales training for company teams, and it was £1,500 to £2,000 per person, varying on a couple of packages. £1,500 to £2,000 per person, and a minimum of 10 people. So the average deal that people were making was between £15,000 and £20,000, cold over the phone with a complete stranger. And this was people who didn't come from a sales background. And the way that we made that business work was to bring people in, obviously train them, coach them, develop them, and within 6 weeks, on average, somebody would do their first £15,000 deal. So that's no sales background to selling 15 grand deals to medium to large companies on a cold call. And that's simply because they followed the system. The third technique that we need to use is a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt is where you do the unexpected. Because most people, when they're on the end of a cold call, they're waiting for the pitch. They're waiting for you to do the same as everybody else in the same way as everybody else. And if you do the same thing as everybody else in the same way as everybody else, you get the same response as everybody else. And if the prospect that you're talking to has told 99 out of the last 100 salespeople to bugger off and never darken their towels again, chances are, if you act like everybody else, you'll get the same result as everybody else. So we have to interrupt the pattern. And typically, we do that with a question. We get somebody else talking, because the pattern of 99 out of 100 cold calls is the person who is doing the call does all the talking. Wrong. What we're trying to do is to get the other person talking, because the deal isn't inside your head, the deal is in their head. The gap between what they want and what they're currently getting is in their head, not inside yours. Your pitch is the least important part of the process. In fact, in many cold calls that I structure and script, the actual pitching part is this big, maybe a minute long at most. It's often less than that because it's simply a summary of what you've already talked about. So what we do with a pattern interrupt, typically it's a question or it's an unexpected statement. So let me give you a real life example from an industry and its clients that we've done a lot of work with. One of the industries we've got the most experience in is commercial insurance brokers. Commercial insurance brokers are the intermediaries between businesses and the actual insurance companies. They work out what insurance is required, they find the best insurers, they find the best cover, and they hopefully come up with prices that their customers are happy with. That's the commercial insurance broker's job. They don't insure individuals, they insure businesses. Now, what do most commercial insurance brokers do when they contact a company? Well, they try and pitch that they can find cheaper markets, that they can lower their premiums, that their fees will be lower, or alternatively, that they've got specialist markets that nobody else has access to and they're unique and wonderful and all things. Yeah? And it doesn't work. But here's what we developed with our clients. Yeah? Our commercial insurance brokers, the whole point of their conversation is really simple. The point of their conversation is to not do a quote. What? It's an insurance company. Surely you've got to do a quote for it. Oh, we'll get there. Believe me, we'll get there. But if you're a commercial insurance broker and you say to a company, hey, the last thing I want to do at this point in time is to try and do some like for like quote and tell you our price for exactly the same insurance. If you go to a company and you say, the last thing I want to do at this point is to come straight out and give you any kind of like for like quote, because firstly, I'm sure your current broker's doing a decent job in terms of getting good prices for you, but equally, what I prefer to do is to make sure that you've got the right cover in place. I want to make sure that you're not overinsured for stuff that you don't need. I want to make sure that you're insured properly for all of the risks that you have. So what I want to do is to come in and do basically a full assessment of everything you've got. It's not going to cost you a penny. But what I'm looking to do is just understand exactly what insurance you need, compare it with the insurance you've got, and then give you some recommendations. If it's great, that's fine. You've had an outside person give you a sanity check and it's all good. Fantastic. You can carry on exactly as you are with complete confidence. And if there is an issue, I'll tell you what it is, and you can either get some prices from me or you can go back to your existing broker and let them sort it all out for you. How's that sound? Boom. Okay. Who's going to say no to having an expert come in and give you a sanity check? Nothing in that pitch is threatening. Nothing in that pitch is in any way confrontational. It doesn't trigger fight or flight. I'm simply saying, hey, everything is probably great. Everything is probably perfect. But I just want to make sure that everything's sorted out for you. If it is, stay where you are. If it isn't, I'll tell you, and you can still stay with your existing broker. But you just make sure that you're covered with everything. There's nothing intimidating, there's nothing threatening, there's nothing to push back at. Of course, once you're into the situation where you're looking at somebody's precise risk, you're looking at their situation in detail, it's then quite easy to start identifying gaps between what they have and what they need, between what they've got and what they want. And as the person who's identified those risks, you are a trusted advisor. You're an expert consultant. You're not a salesperson. That pattern interrupt is to make your delivery, to make everything you do match with being an expert advisor. You are a trusted advisor. You're a consultant. You're not trying to push a box of stuff. Let's face it, when all you've got is one product, when all you've got is a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. So take a step back from it. And even if you are just selling a box of something, if all you're selling is one product, that doesn't matter. Become a consultant, become an advisor, build some trust so that when you recommend your product as the solution, it has some grounding, it has some basis in a relationship with this person. And that is how my teams went from saying hello to a chief executive that they've never spoken to before, has never heard our name, to typically 45 minutes later, them issuing a purchase order for £15,000 to £20,000 and training 10 of their salespeople. It's not because of some clever pitch. It's not because our product was completely irresistible. As it happens, it was, but that's not the point. That's the offer. You can have the best offer in the world, but if people aren't willing to listen to it, it doesn't matter. So your tonality is the first secret. The second secret is to build rapport fast and consistently. Don't just get rapport, use it to help make them curious, to help make them enthusiastic, to help make them hacked off with their current situation, whatever the appropriate state may be. And thirdly, interrupt the pattern by not being a salesperson. Salespeople are scary, they're obnoxious, they're pushy. A trusted advisor, a consultant who gives advice, who makes recommendations, who says, hey, based on all this, what I'd probably recommend is, or based on everything that you've talked about, what I'd suggest is, that's a much more effective, much more powerful place to be than the pushy salesperson. But those are the three mistakes that people make. They come across as a salesperson, they overpitch, they don't build any rapport. They try and find things in common instead of behavior in common. That's number two. And number three, they don't interrupt the pattern. They do the same stuff as everybody else in the same way as everybody else. They get the same results as everybody else, which is typically being told to bugger off. That's number three. If you can avoid those three mistakes, you instantly will move up to the top 1% of all cold callers. And after that, it's about strategy and technique. And in terms of strategy and technique, if you want to use the world's best cold calling script and most effective cold calling system, look down in the description. There's a link there. Click the link. You'll get immediate access to a free ebook. You can copy it, you can share it with your colleagues and friends, or you can keep it as your own personal secret weapon. It's entirely up to you. But click the link, fill in your details, get your free copy. We'll send it to you straight away. If this has been useful, and I really hope it has, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the routine. But please also comment down below. Ask me any questions you've got. I read all the comments personally. I will reply personally. Just give me a little bit of time to make sure I get through everything. But hit me up with your comments. Hit me up with your questions. Hit me up with, what do I do here? What about that? What about this? I will always come back to you. I will always answer every single comment personally. Focus on the skills. Focus on the competence. All this YouTube watching is only useful if you actually do something with it. Start recording your calls, listen to them, play back, be aware of somebody's first couple of seconds. What words do they use? How fast, how loud? Do that back to them. And throw in some questions early and often. Do the unexpected. Not random behavior, but do the unexpected. Don't be everybody else. And if you work on those consistently and develop some genuine competence, you will do great. Just remember, anyone who says that cold calling doesn't work doesn't know how to do it. So go and enjoy, have some fun, make some money, build your confidence, and I'll see you next time.